Local recording going. Alright guys, what is up? And welcome to the HexTcgPro Procast covering the Gencon decks that we saw. Normally I have Tata with me, but unfortunately he could not make it today. Something came up and he couldn't make it. So instead it's just going to be me. I apologize. I'm actually obviously not as well versed in the world of card games as Mr. Tata is. So hopefully I can still shed a little bit of light on what I think some of the better decks will be, and talk a little bit about that. Anyway, so we'll just go ahead and kind of get into this. See who all is. What's up, Master Fat? If you guys have any questions or anything, let me know. Or if you have anything you want to chime in about the decks, if you want to say something about them, talk about them, that's fine. Just let me know. I do have the chat popped out. Once I switch over, you'll actually kind of see it. Also, keep in mind that I will be giving away a copy of SoulForge at the very end of this. So basically, all you have to do is just be following the stream and be in the chat and stick around to the end. And then I'll basically just randomly draw, like randomly roll dice or some sort of number generator thing, and whoever I land on will be the winner of SoulForge, which is a pretty neat game. I've kind of been streaming it the last couple of days and kind of covered it in my Shaggy TV episode Tuesday. So if you haven't seen the game, check those out. Actually, before I get into the actual game, or the decks, I'm sorry, I'll switch it over here. But I will show you guys this. This is something I've been working on. I did put up a little schedule here, so you can basically come to the schedule. So you can basically let me freaking mute that. Anyway, you can come in, you can see the schedule, you can see basically when I'll be streaming, what we'll be streaming Monday through Sunday. And then after I do stream it, I'll actually activate these links for the episode, or for whenever I was streaming, in case you guys miss it. So hopefully that'll be something cool that you guys can take advantage of to kind of see when I'll be streaming and stuff, in case I, am retarded and forget to announce when I'm going to do it or whatever. So I got that little thing kind of going. But other than that, that's really, I think, all the announcements I really have. Also, make sure that you stop by. I really should have these. Why is this up here? Why does this stay here? Oh, it's just like bugged. Whoa, that's so cool. Anyway, if you go to HexTcgPro.com, you can check out all of our latest videos. I was lazy and didn't get me and Tata's HexTG Procast last week, where we were showed you guys basically. Well, he showed you guys the basics of drafting, and we used a hex draft simulator, which was pretty neat. So hopefully you guys like that and enjoyed it. So anyway, I think that's really about all I have to cover. So without further ado, we'll move on to the Gencon decks. So last Friday, with the updates that Cryptozoic always does, they basically brought out all the decks that we'll get to play at Gencon. So in case you guys weren't aware, next week is actually Gencon. So it goes from the 15th to the 18th, and during that time they're going to have basically a LAN. So where you can play against other players, and unfortunately we don't get to actually just sit down and play with the client like I think we originally thought we were going to be able to. Instead, they're going to give us 6 decks that we can choose from and play, and almost all I'm going to say almost all these decks were decks that we just saw during the streams. So during the Kickstarter events when they were streaming the decks, these are basically the decks they were streaming. So basically we're going to be able to jump in with these decks, play around with them a little bit. It looks like they've tweaked a couple of them just a little bit, and that's going to kind of be our card pool. So we'll start off with the first deck, which is the Mono Blood deck, which is my favorite deck. I really like it. I love Blood right now. It's my favorite color. I do feel like it might be a little weak, but we'll go through here real quick, and I'll show you kind of the champion and all the troops and actions and all that stuff. So we start off with the old cool looking guy here, old Gazog here, and his charge power is for 2 charges you can deal 1 damage to target champion and gain 1 health. Now I don't think that's a particularly strong charge power. I actually feel like it's one of the weaker ones, but during the stream when we saw this deck perform, they actually used I think it was 3 charges, lose 2 life, draw a card, which for this type of deck worked much better. I'm not sure why they decided to switch the hero up. I don't know if they thought maybe that was too powerful effect, or what they decided to do with it and why they changed it. But they did change it to this hero, which is deal 1 damage, gain 1 life. I don't really like it. I don't think it's that powerful. Obviously, there could be times where maybe gain that 1 life would be good, and whatever. But I do feel like it's a very, very weak ability, and because of that, it's going to make the deck perform a little bit weaker than some of the better charge power champions that we've seen in the other decks that we'll see once we move on. It runs 3 Bone Warriors, which Bone Warriors is a great deck for a great card, a great troop for the kind of more control-y decks. Basically, the way he works is he's 2 and 2, which thresholds in this deck isn't really going to matter too much, actually at all, because it is a mono-color deck. So if we have problems, getting threshold, it's just because we haven't drew the lands, not because we're drawing the wrong kind of lands. So threshold's not too important, but it is a 2-cost troop, 1 power, 2 toughness, and when it dies, it turns into a pile of bones. And the pile of bones actually can't attack or block, but he can pay 4 at any time and transform him back into a Bone Warrior. So it's a very consistent, a very malleable troop. It's going to be available, for a long time unless the other decks have a way to remove them permanently. Which is very good for these type of control decks, and we'll see once we go further down in some of the actions and stuff. The deck does take advantage of, kill your troop, draw 3 cards, those type of things. So Bone Warrior is going to give us kind of a sack outlet or something for us to be able to sacrifice that's not going to hinder us as much as killing a troop that won't be able to come back. So Bone Warrior is a great card for the type of deck. We also have 3 of the Corrupt Harvester, which is a 4-drop life drain card. Life drain is lifelink in Magic. Basically, the amount of damage you do with the troop, you gain that much life. Also, it has this troop can't be blocked except by artifact troops and or blood troops. So it has fear, which is very similar to the keyword in Magic. So basically what happens is, unless you have a blood or artifact troop, you cannot block this creature. So that's going to give him enough evasion to actually be able to get through, and he's a 3/3, so he's actually pretty tough. And he's going to be able to kind of gain some life from the deck, which is going to be a very good threat. It's going to be able to allow you to kind of last into the late game and hopefully take the game over then. We also have 3 Cruel Web Crawlers, which I think this card is really, really cool. Basically, this troop says when this troop deals damage to an opposing champion, create a spider spawn and put it into play. It's also a 3/2 for 3. The toughness is a little low, but that's okay because its effect is very powerful. The spider spawn is actually a 2/1. So it's with the amount of removal this deck has, it's actually possible that the Web Walker, the Web Crawler, could actually just kind of take over the game. After it attacks a couple times, it's going to have quite a few threats out to not only deal damage or chump block. You can also necessary sacrifice it to draw more cards. The Cool Web Walker does have the ability to take over these kind of low impact decks that we're going to see. None of these decks have like ridiculously high level of cards because they're kind of these stream decks. So because of that, a creature that they can have so much value like the Web Crawler is actually pretty good card. It also runs 4 Giant Corpse Fly, which is a 3-cost 1/1 flyer. And it says when this troop enters play, each opposing champion chooses and discards a card. Now, actually, I think no, okay. Yeah, this card's actually really neat. Me and John talked a lot about it during our draft video last week, and obviously it's going to be much better in draft. It's going to be in a standard type of format. But again, like I talked about before, none of these decks are super high impact with cards. So a 1/1 flyer that can make you discard a card, it could actually get you an advantage. So the card is pretty neat. I don't know if I'd run 4 in the deck. I don't think 4 is the right number for this deck, but I do think the card is really cool. It also allows you to kind of play it out, make them discard a card, necessary sacrifice, draw 3 of your own, and then you're going to have ridiculous card advantage. So the card is pretty neat, and I'm pretty excited to try it out. We have the old vanilla 2/1 Mangled Zombie 4 of. Not really too much to talk here. It's just the vanilla 2/1. Not really a big fan of the card, but what you gonna do? We also have 3 of the Shadow Grove Witch, which is the 2/2. When this troop enters play, each opposing champion reveals a random card from their hand. Each troop revealed this way gets permanent -2/-2. So it's just like basically a type of removal tied onto a creature, which is always important. And for this type of deck, more importantly, so the deck is kind of evolved around getting these creatures that have a little bit of value and be able to run you out of cards. So the Shadowgrove Rich kind of serves that dual purpose to be able to not only possibly make you discard a card out of your hand by killing it, but maybe taking a threat they couldn't deal with before and making it so they can deal with it, giving a higher power and toughness creature -2/-2, and then maybe chum blocking with a Bone Warrior, or maybe even a Corpse Fly could result in killing something where before you wouldn't be able to deal with it. So the card's really neat. Again, more powerful in draft than I think that it will be in standard, but for this type of decks, it's actually pretty good. We have the old Chosen here. As initial cost to play this troop, sacrifice 2 troops. This troop can't be blocked. So if anybody watched the stream whenever this creature was actually played, the 5/4 creature that can't be blocked has the potential to actually end the game very quickly, especially if you're kind of ahead or your opponent's already low anyway. I do think that this is obviously the bomb, if you will, of the deck. This is the way that the mono black deck wants to win. It's one to run you out of creatures, kind of hang into kind of the 6-ish area and drop this guy and hopefully kill you with it. I do think that after looking at the other decks, we'll get into it a little bit, but this deck is, this card itself is actually going to be pretty hard to deal with. We have other murders and stuff to maybe deal with it, but other than that, the card is actually going to be pretty tough to kill. I think the stream video we saw, he actually ended up winning with this card. It also has a downside of making you sacrifice 2 troops as you play it, but with giant corpse flies, the spiderlings you can make with the web crawler, and the bone warriors you have, sacrificing these creatures won't put you as far behind if you're I guess already ahead, which is kind of the problem so far with the deck. The deck really kind of revolves around you kind of being ahead. Obviously you can't play this guy if you're behind, so while this guy is going to close out the game for you, which is good, you're going to have to get to a position where you're already kind of winning to be able to take advantage of it. So we move on to the actions. We have 2 life siphons. This card is very good. It's just X, deal X damage to target champion and gain X health. This is another semi-win con for the deck. Obviously, if you can chip your opponent down low enough, you can just life siphon them out. It is at sorcery speed, which is okay. Again, you're trying to kill them. There is no counter spells, so there's nothing you really have to worry about too much. You're going to be able to play it whenever you can. Gain life is going to be awesome to be able to survive through the more aggro decks, which there is quite a few of the more aggro decks in these deck lists. So Life Siphon is like probably my favorite card in the deck, and I wish they would run more than 2. I wish maybe at least 3 would be really cool. We have 4 Murder, which is just instant cast, destroy target troop. This card is going to be pinnacle to be able to kill the bigger threats in each of the decks. So we'll talk more about what those threats are. For example, if you're playing against another mono black deck, you're going to want to save your Murders to try to kill this Chosen if possible. Because making this guy come out, they have to sacrifice 2 of their guys, and then you can murder this guy out. You really have the potential, if you can have the murder at the right time, to really blow out, I guess yourself. Yeah, I do love Murder. It's again one of my favorite cards. Number 2 is Necessary Sacrifice. I've already talked a little bit about it before, but this is going to basically be the card draw for the deck. You have quite a few cards to be able to get value out of this. So, for example, sacrificing your Bone Warrior to draw 3 cards, and then next turn bring it right back to life is going to be okay. It is a basic action, which kind of sucks, but whatever. For what it is, it's very good. There's 2 of them in the deck. I think that's the right number. Now, if it just straight up drew you 3 cards, you'd probably want to run maybe 1 more. But the fact you have to sacrifice for it is it's okay to only have 2, because you're not always going to get that value out of it. Pact of Pain is a constant, so it's basically, in case you guys aren't familiar, constant's very much like an enchantment. It comes out, it stays in play until it's dealt with. This is pay 2 mana, pay 2 life, draw a card. I love this. Obviously, you can do this at instant speed, so you can do this in response to a threat. Let's say they play out they play out a creature. You don't have a murder in your hand. You can, before in a turn, try to draw out another murder to try to kill them. It has a lot of. It's basically the engine of the deck. It's a way for you to keep drawing cards. Obviously, paying 2 life and 2 mana is a little expensive. I do think that this would be by far one of my favorite cards in Hex if the expense wasn't so much. If it was just pay 2 life, or just pay 2 mana, obviously I would like it much more. But for this type of deck, it's needed. You have to have some kind of fuel. And when we saw this deck perform in stream, it also had the hero power, which did the same thing. So it really allowed him to dig through his deck pretty quickly. So this card is going to be very pinnacle for this deck's success. So the third card, the last action, is the Terrible Transfer. There's 3 of these in the deck. It's 5 cost, deal 1 damage to target troop for each blood threshold you have, gain 1 health for each damage dealt this way. So this is sort of Life Siphon, but it's instant cast. And it's relying on your blood threshold, which again, this is a monocolor deck, so it's going to be fine. The only thing I don't like about this deck is it does cost 5. I mean, about this deck, I'm sorry, about this spell was it does cost 5 mana, and I really wish it didn't. I really wish it was a little bit cheaper, so that way you could take more advantage of it in the early game. But unfortunately, we can't. So this is actually just another way for us to kill out creatures, which is fine. With this card, I mean, obviously, if you play it on turn 5, you're going to be able to just deal 5 damage. So because of that. It's basically deal 5 damage to target creature. The big downside for this card is that it can't attack champions. So because of that, we're not going to be able to actually win the game with it. It's just going to be a way for us to kill creatures and kind of keep our board under control. Other than that, it has 25 blood shards, which I think is a good number. I think 25 is going to be a good number. I actually wouldn't be afraid to run more land than that in Hex decks just because of the hero power, but because the hero power of this deck is so weak, I'm completely okay with 25 blood shards. So that's kind of the mono blood deck. I really like it. Like I said, I love blood right now. It's my favorite color. I do not feel like it's the strongest deck out of all the ones that was previewed for Gencon, but I definitely think that it's my favorite. It'd probably be one of the ones I'll play at Gencon. Okay, so coming up next is what I predict will be the most popular deck at Gencon, and this is the Bunnies deck. Basically, it's Blood Wild aggro deck. I think this is not only going to be the most popular, but I think it's going to be probably one of the better decks there. Obviously, when a card game first comes out, the best decks almost always are aggro decks, and that's because first of all they're pretty easy to play, and second of all they're very consistent. It's really hard to play a control deck, which is kind of what Mono Black up here is trying to be, without really knowing what the threats in the meta are. I mean, the whole point of a control deck is to control the board and win late game. But it's really hard to control the board when you're not really sure what's going to be or what people can play. So because that, control decks traditionally aren't very good at the beginning of a card game or of a new set or a new format or whatever. So because of this, I think that the Battle Hopper deck is going to be one of the better decks. So we'll start off talking about the champion. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that word, so we'll just call her little bunny archer girl. 3 charges, create a Battle Hopper, and put it into play. So the cool thing about this is actually a good charge power, unlike the the blood charge power we saw, and the fact that basically every third turn, because you get charges on your hero by just playing resources, so every third turn you get a free 0-1. That's really important for this type of deck, and it's even good in other decks. I mean, even just having an 0-1 chump blocker is good for free. So the charge power is very strong, and actually one of the strongest that we've seen in these Gen Con decks. So the hero is very good. And synergizes very well with this type of deck. The first troop is the Blood Cauldron Ritualist, which is a 3-drop, 1 blood threshold, which is actually, in this deck, since it's multicolor, the thresholds are actually pretty important. We actually run 1 more blood shard than we do wild shard, so it's okay to maybe have a 2 threshold blood card, but we really want to try to stick at 1-1. So anyway, we have the 3-drop Blood Cauldron Ritualist. Sacrifice another troop. This troop becomes 4/4 this turn. So obviously that's very important, and it's kind of a way for us to blow people out. At this land, we're going to be able to. We don't know the caliber of player that's going to be there, so it's very easy to attack with the Blood Cauldron Ritualists, and then if they try to block it, sack and basically pump this up by 3 and get some favorable trades for us. Since the sack is a instant cast ability, we can obviously make plays that opponents might not see. So this is obviously a very good card for that, and most good aggro decks have that type of effect. Also, the deck has plenty of ways to have free sacks off the hero power, and runs to the litter. We have plenty of ways to be able to sack and pump this creature up. So obviously one of the better creatures in the deck, and I really like it. And I'm really excited to see what happens. So this is the Bucktooth Commander. Other Shinhair you control get +1/+1. This is actually the new art on the Bucktooth Commander too, which is really neat. So this is 2 Wild Threshold, 3-drop. Very, very good card. Obviously, we call these cards Lords. So he's a Lord because he pumps up, the other Shinhair. So because of that, Lords are always the most important card in the kind of, I guess, clan type matchups. So like basically, we're going to be able to, pump our other Shinhair up by 1. So this is by far the most. It's not very flavorful. It's not very like awesome or very unique, but it is by far one of the most important cards in the deck. So here we have Sensei. 2-drop 1 Wild Threshold. When this troop enters play, draw a card. This is really important for aggro decks because one of the things that a lot of aggro decks lack, and the thing I love about the Bunnies deck, is that it does have ways to basically fuel your cards. A lot of times aggro decks they'll start out, they'll play their cards out, and then they'll run out of fuel. Basically, they'll run out of cards, and then they might get you to 2 or 3, and then they can never draw anything to actually be able to kill you. So cards like this that can kind of refill our hands and give us more fuel to be able to play off of is very important in aggro decks. And I think that this deck actually has a couple ways to do that. And because of that, I think it's going to be one of the stronger aggro decks at the show. Actually, let me look at him real quick. He's just a 1/1, so that's still okay. So this is the Shinhair Eulogist, which is when another Shinhair you control dies, this troop gets permanent +1/+1. So this card is actually, I think, one of the strongest cards in the deck, which I feel like I've said that almost every card, but seriously though, this card is actually very, very strong. The thing about, if you've watched any of the Soulforge cast that I've done in the last couple of days, there's a card there called Devour, and anytime another creature dies, it gets +1/+1, or +2/+2 or +3/+3, depending on the level of the card. And that card itself just takes over games. So the effect to give one of your creatures +1/+1 when something dies is super, super important. Especially when we have so many sack outlets like we do in this deck. We have the Ritualist, we have Necessary Sacrifice. Not to mention we could just even murdering one of our own creatures to buff this guy up to be able to win is super important. Anything that can give an aggro deck an extra edge to win is very, very important. So like if we can swing and be like, okay, crap, we knocked this guy down to 1. Is there any way we can get 1 more damage in? And given a card like this that actually gives us the ability to do so, will let you win games almost out of nowhere, and it gives you that extra angle to attack from. So this card's really, really cool. I'm really looking forward to playing with this card. I think it's going to be really neat, and I don't think it's only good in Shinhair decks. I mean, only good in aggro decks. I actually think there could be some Shinhair type control decks where this card could actually take over. You could easily runts of the litter and have 3 chump blockers. Every time you chump block, this guy's going to get stronger. So I think this card is really, really cool. Moving on to next, the Shinhair Militia, which is just a vanilla 1-drop 1/2. Pretty neat card. So you're going to have cards like that in the deck. The next card is the 4-drop Mushwookie. As the Mushwookie enters play, if it's hungry, which first of all, the thing I hate about this card is I hate its text. I hate the way it's worded. I think it's so annoying. But anyway, I'm sorry. If it's hungry, you may sacrifice any number of Shinhair. The mushroom gets +3/+3 for each Shinhair sacrifice this way. And it used to have this little text out here that was like, it's always hungry, which is just like really annoying. I think it's so confusing. Anyway, basically the way this works is as he enters play, you can sacrifice as many Shinhair as you want, and he gets +3/+3 for each one. Obviously, this is very, very strong, and you got to be very, very careful with this type of card. It has the potential to completely blow out your opponent, and it has the potential to completely get you blown out. It's very easy for you to play this out, sack all your Shinhair, and be like, all right, I got this 20/20, I'm going to shit on you, and then it gets murdered, and you're like, oh crap, I'm in a pretty bad position. So I do think this card, is pretty neat. I don't think I would ever include it in my Shinhair deck, just because I think it's very rare that you're going to want to sacrifice a unit you control to him instead of just using like the Ritualist or Necessary Sacrifice. But you do have the ability to sacrifice, get kind of the dual use off of this and the Eulogist, be able to play him out and sacrificing all of your guys, but the Eulogist to pump the mushroom and him up is going to be pretty neat, and maybe get you out of range of like a terrible transfer or something. Moving on is Izumi. We talked a lot about Izumi. She's double Wild Threshold 7-drop. Basically, if she's in your opening hand, you may reveal her. If you do, you create a battle hopper. So that's obviously very good. And I can see a lot of people getting kind of, well, not a lot of people, but I can see you kind of getting an early advantage just off having this card in your hand. The thing you have to think about though is having a 7-drop in your hand that you'll never use worth an 0-1. And I don't think it is. So I don't think like you should do any crazy stuff like mulligan till you get this guy in your opening hand or anything like that. I don't think it's that powerful. But I do think that having a 7-drop in your opening hand without this effect is very annoying. So I think it's really neat that they're kind of, designing this card to be played with more aggressive decks, but also giving you the upside of like if you accidentally draw it, it's okay. There's only 2 in the deck. I think that might be even too much. Might only run 1 in the deck, but 2's okay. And then at the start of your turn, you just create a random non-unique Shinhair. So if you look through here real quick, I don't think. So, yeah, there is a couple. There's a couple unique. Maybe not. Let me see. I think it's just him. Yeah. Yeah, so I think, she's actually the only unique in the deck. So obviously, if you get lucky and create like first of all, getting any Shinhair free off of her is worth it. It doesn't even matter what it is; it's still worth it. Getting a free creature at the start of your turn is always good. It doesn't matter which one it is. It could be a battle hopper; it's still good. So the fact that she gives you the ability to do that is really neat. Obviously, if you get lucky and she makes a Lord for you, one of the Bucktooth commanders, and that's going to be obviously tremendously good and really going to be able to. It gives aggro decks that kind of finisher. I hate that it's at 7 though. I wish it was a cheaper creature. Maybe take away some of its power and toughness and maybe make it like a 5 or 6 draw. So moving on to actions, we have the murder, which we talked about. The necessary sacrifice, which we also talked about. Runs to the litter, which is a very, very powerful card. It's a 2-drop, 1 wild threshold. Create 3 battle hoppers and put them into play. The card is very, very powerful, and for this type of deck is very, very good. I can also see it being used in control decks as well. So I'm pretty excited for it. This is actually one of my favorite cards, spoiled, and I think is going to define the format once the game goes live. Moving into Wretched Brood, which is very similar to Bitter Blossom if you guys are familiar with Magic. It's basically a 3-drop, 2 blood threshold constant, and it says at the start of your turn, lose 1 health and create a battle hopper and put it into play. This card's awesome. I think it's going to, again, be another staple once the game goes live. I can see this making its way into aggro decks, control decks, mid-range decks. It's just such a cool card. The fact that you can lose 1 life, and actually it used to be, I'm pretty sure, lose 2 life, so yeah, I think it used to be. Yeah, I'm too kind of surprised I didn't put Evolve in the deck. Anyway, I'm pretty sure this card used to be lose 2 life. So anyway, you lose 1 life now and put a battle hopper, an 0-1 battle hopper into play. Very powerful. Bitter Blossom completely defined the format when it was out. This card is very similar to it. And actually, this card is why we run 1 more Blood Shard over the Wild Shard, because we do have a lot of well, not a lot. We have a couple of dual wild threshold cards, but most of them are later drops, and the Wretched Brood is a much earlier drop at 3, so that's why we run 13 blood shards and 12 wild shards. So anyway, this is the green, the wild blood aggro deck. I think it's very, very strong, and like I say, probably going to be the most popular deck at the show. It's definitely going to be one of the funnest to play. It also has a lot of staying power with Wretched Brood too. I mean, you can easily. It not only gives us staying power, but it gives us a sack outlet with our ritualists and our necessary sacrifice. So the deck is going to be very, very strong, and I'm super excited to play it. Moving on, we'll go into the. Let me look at this real quick. I think this is the mono. Yeah, this is the mono red aggro deck, which me and Tana were kind of talking about being kind of. We're kind of pumped to see the mono red aggro deck. I know me and him talked a lot about how we think that will probably be one of the strongest aggro decks moving in to the opening of Hex. And I don't remember seeing this deck played on stream, so I think this might be one they either added or maybe I just didn't. I don't remember seeing it. Actually, no, I think we've seen this during the Learn How to Play video. Actually, I think this is the deck played during the Learn How to Play video, maybe. Anyway, we'll start off with the hero of the champion. This is actually one of my favorite champions in the game. But basically, 3 charges, create a Blaze Elemental and put it into play. The Blaze Elemental is, I think, a 3-1. Yeah, 3-1 with haste, with speed. At the end of your turn, you just have to sacrifice it. So that's obviously very strong for an aggro deck to have that type of ability. The problem is it can be chump blocked. You can easily just use a battle hopper and chump block it, and then you basically trade an 0-1 for a 3-1 because it does die at the end of your turn. But I do think that it's a very, very good deck, and it's very, very good power. It's going to be very good against the aggro decks. I'm sorry, the control decks. So the first troop we see is the Arena Brawler. Vanilla 2-drop for a 3-1. It's an orc, so that we want to take note of that. If any of our stuff relies on us having orcs, this is an orc, so we can take advantage of it. Moving on, Bombsmith. When this troop enters play, it may deal 1 damage to target troop. It's pretty neat. It's a pretty cool card. We maybe can get some value out of it. It can kill battle hoppers, so that's cool. I'm sure it can kill some of our. It can kill our corpse flies from the mono black deck, which isn't going to really be a huge threat anyway. But it does give you the ability to get a little bit of value out of the card. So killing battle hoppers though is going to be key when you're playing against the green black deck. The Ember Spire Witch, which is she has Swift Strike, which is basically she hits twice. No, wait, it's Swift Strike. I don't think so. That's what that is. Swift Strike's actually she hits first, so it's like first strike. I'm sorry. Champions can't gain health. Now, this effect is super, super powerful. Any kind of thing you see that says champions can't gain health is directly made for aggro decks, and they take advantage of it way more than any other deck. We haven't seen too many decks, obviously, but there is 2 big decks that actually this will completely blow out. Number 1 is our mono black deck we saw. They do have a lot of life gain. They have one life gain creature and a couple life gain spells. So the fact that they can't use those spells is going to be very important when fighting them. Also, the next deck we see, the life gain deck, won't be able to gain life, and because they can't gain life, their creatures won't raise. Hey, what's up, man? Their creatures won't raise in toughness or power and toughness. Did I ask what? I just said what's up. Anyway, so this is really important when playing against those decks. So there's only 3 in the deck, which I think is an okay number in the deck. So we have the Savage Raider, which is the 1-drop, 1 blood threshold. This troop attacks each turn with able. It's basically just a 1-drop 2-1. It's actually really good. Oh, no, actually I haven't yet. I'm sorry, buddy. I'll check into that though. I promise. I'll probably. Like I said, we're all meeting up for Gencon next week, so I'll ask everyone then. Anyway, so the Savage Raider is a 2-1 for 1, just a little bit of value. It is an orc, again. So, pretty cool card. Nothing too spectacular. We have the one... Alright, man. We had the 1-drop Unmerciful Tormentor. While you have no cards in hand, this troop gets +3/+3. This card's okay. Obviously, this is a pretty good card when placing against the black deck that we talked about. It does have a little bit of card discard in it, so if you had this card out, maybe you can take advantage of it. Still, though, I don't think there's ever a point in time when having no cards is okay because you have a 4/4 in play. So. While I do think the card is neat in an aggro deck, because aggro decks do tend to empty their hand very quickly, you never want to try to be like, how can I make this guy a 4/4 in expense to not having a hand. So I think it's a cool threat, a cool safety net maybe. I don't think you want 3 in your deck. I would only suggest having 2 if they would. If you could change that, but you can't. So anyway, moving on. The Veteran Gladiator. This troop attacks each turn if able. When this troop attacks, target troop can't block this turn. This effect is very powerful in an aggro deck. You'll be able to attack with it, pick a creature the opponent controls they can't block, and then swing through. Obviously, if they have 1 blocker, this card is super, super good. The more blockers they have, the least powerful this card is, but it's still very powerful. And also, likewise, the more copies of this card you have out in play, the more powerful it is, that the effect is. So the effect is very powerful in an aggro deck, so I'm really glad that they, included that in the deck. Your actions, we have 3 burn, 1 cost, deal 2 damage to target champion or troop. Really cool. 3 Infernos. At the start of each opponent's turn, this constant deals 3 damage to that champion. Okay, so this card was on our list of one of the better, one of the best red cards, or ruby cards spoiled. This card's very powerful, and the effect it has is very good against control decks. If you have this card out, so like your opponent will always take the damage first. That's one thing to remember. So you'll play it out. Next turn they'll take 3 damage, and then you'll take 3 damage. Okay, so as the aggro deck, you actually do not mind to be taking 3 damage each turn because traditionally you're going to win the race. Like you're going to have the more aggressive creatures out. This card with your Ember Spire Witch is going to be very powerful as well. Making them take 3 damage each turn that they can't heal is going to be very powerful, and even it's going to allow you to win the race even further. Obviously, that's going to be the problem with Inferno, with decks like the life gain deck we're about to see, and the mono black deck that has the ability to gain life itself. You can kind of get outraced very easily by, just a little bit of life gain. But I think that the card itself is very, very powerful, and I can't wait to play with it and can't wait to see what it does. Then we have Ragefire, which is one of the best Ruby cards we've seen. You deal 2 damage to target champion or troop, which is very important that you can hit both. And it has escalation. So basically, after you use it, the bold number doubles. So instead of 2, it'll go to 4, and it shuffles back into your deck. So that's very, very powerful. The one thing is about escalation cards is, you're probably not going to draw it again. You have a very low chance of drawing them again. But if you do, it's very powerful. Also, copies all copies of that card are affected. So if you have 2 Ragefires in your hand, for example, you can hit for 2, and then that one in your hand will turn to 4 damage, and you can use it as well to do 4 more. So you have 6 power worth of burn instead of 4. So the effect is very, very, very powerful, and even just to be able to clear out a troop to be able to swing through. This card has multiple uses, which is always good to have in your deck. And after that, we have 25 Ruby Shards. I think 25 resources is fine. I think even cutting a couple resources and increasing some troops and stuff would be okay in the deck. But with the Blaze Elemental power, you're not going to be behind by playing, too many resources. All right, so moving on to the 4th deck, and I believe is what Tada's favorite deck is the Life Gain deck. So this deck is pretty neat. I know when we saw it on stream, we thought it was really cool. It's very similar to the Soul Sisters deck that we saw in Magic for a little bit and during Zendikar. The deck is very, very neat, and I'm pretty excited to also check it out. Actually, I keep saying that about all these decks, but I'm actually just super excited to be able to jump in and actually play the game finally. But anyway, the champion power is 2 charges, target troop gets life drain in this deck, which might not seem really that powerful, but it is very, very powerful, and it's even more extremely powerful once we see the type of deck that's built around this creature. Once I kind of show you the creatures and how they kind of synergize together, this champion is the perfect champion for the deck. But also, the champion's actually pretty good. And maybe even a control deck, for example. If you have, like we talked about, the black-white control deck. I don't know if the champion's still around that lets you draw cards, but if he's not around, this could be a good good champion to use instead of him. Being able to give one of your big fatties life gain can really put you out of reach from aggro decks. So he's actually a pretty good champion for control too. Obviously not the best, but still usable. Okay, so we go to the Scrivener first. He's a 1-drop, 1 threshold. When this or another troop enters play under your control, you gain 1 health. Pretty straightforward, not too complex. Basically, whenever this or another troop you control, actually, is it? Yeah, under your control. You gain 1 life. So it's pretty straightforward. But the reason why it's really important, we'll see in a bit. But we'll move forward. Captain the Dragon Guard is the next creature. When this troop enters play, you may put target troop in your graveyard on top of your deck. That troop gets +1/+1. This effect is really cool, and I'm not going to talk too much about this troop because me and Tad covered this a lot during our draft, because apparently this guy's in every pack and draft. But we did cover, why he's really cool and why he's really powerful. But basically, he gives you recursion on a creature, which is, first of all, really good, and he also buffs that creature. Also, there's 2 in the deck, so if you ever get 2 of them, you can keep bringing them back. Like, you can chain them off of each other. So you can play him, bring your your guard back, put him on top. He gets +1/+1. If this one dies, you play the one. You draw that person, play him out, and return them. So you can just keep cycling them until they get out of control. So that's pretty neat. Chimera Guard Outrider is our 3rd creature in the deck. When this troop attacks, it gets attack equal to its defense this turn. So that's pretty neat. Like, it's a 0/4, but when it attacks, it's a 4/4. That's actually pretty powerful. A 4-power attacker is actually, pretty powerful in these decks. We haven't seen very many like that. So it's a very neat mechanic. Move on to the Kraken Guard. He has Inspire. As another troop with cost equal to or greater than this troop cost enters play under your control, it gets permanent +0/+1, which is, not too bad with our Outrider we just saw. We have the Living Totem. He's a troop. You have to pay 3 mana. This troop gets permanent +1/+1. It is flight, life drain, steadfast, or swift strike. So this is that really cool variable we talked about. You know, it's really cool to have decks to have this ability to shift. You know, if we have a big creature, we can give it flight and give it evasion and basically attack through. We have the ability, if we're about to die, we can give one of our creatures life drain and get life back. If we need a blocker but we still want to put pressure on, we can give it steadfast and attack. Which will still allow it to block next turn. We can give a creature first strike if we want, so that way we can trade efficiently during blocks. This effect is an instant cast ability, so because of that we can play it multiple times, and we can play it at instant cast speeds. We can play it during blocks, we can play it as we attack, we can play it on our opponent's turn, we can play it on our turn, we can play it anytime we want. So that's a very, very powerful effect, and it's very cool to have those type of things in our deck. Let alone the ability to have it on a creature. I mean, it's still a 2/2 creature, so because of that, we can still block with them. He has the potential to be a 2/2. A 3/3 at 3 mana, and obviously a 4/4 at 6. So this card's very neat, and I'm really, really excited for it. I think it's going to be a very good card. Also, it has Phoenix Guard Aeronaut, which is a creature with a 5-drop creature with flight, a 3/4. Each opposing champion who played a non-resource card this turn can't attack with troops. Each opposing champion who attacked with a troop this turn can't play non-resource cards. So this effect is super strong in control decks, obviously, and mid-range decks. So I think that it's a perfect card for this type of deck. It has 2 of these in here. It's also a rare card too. I feel like this deck also has a lot of the more high rarity cards and the more powerful cards in the deck. And then we have our big boy here that brings the whole deck together, our Righteous Paladin. When you gain health, this troop gets permanent +1/+1. So this creature really, really synergizes with the rest of our deck. It works well with our champion, works well with our Scriveners, it works well with our living totems. Like, there's so many different ways that we can gain life in this deck that this creature can get huge, and get huge very quickly. So I'm really, really excited about this card, and I feel like that this deck is really, really neat. Also, going back to the Aeronaut, I'm sorry I kind of skipped over this real quick. To kind of explain what this does is, if your opposing champion played a non-resource card, then they can't attack. So basically, and then if they play each opposing champion who attacked with a troop this turn can't play non-resource cards. So if they play out a creature or they play out a spell, they can't attack. If they attack, they can't play out a spell or play out a creature. So it makes your opponent have to choose what they want to do with their turn. Do they want to attack, or they want to further their board state. Traditionally, when we see cards like this, it only affects both players. Like, it makes both players make this choice. This card right now only makes your opponent make that decision, so you're still being able to do both each turn. So that effect is extremely, extremely powerful and will easily take over the game. So moving on to our actions, we've got Eternal Youth. This is gain 5 life on top of escalation, so you gain 5 life, then 10 life, then 15, then 20. Let me check something on Righteous Paladin. Is it for every point you gain? No, it's just when you actually gain life. Okay. But obviously this card's very, very good. It's going to be a very good card versus aggro decks. Traditionally gaining life is not a good way to spend your turn, right? So not very. You need to look at your life most of the time in card games as a resource. So it's like, I can sacrifice X amount of life to be able to play this card. I can take this attack. I'll be okay. I have 20 life. So using 3 mana to gain 5 life normally isn't a good play. But in this deck, you're not only gaining 5 life, but you're also buffing all your creatures that we've seen with our Righteous Paladin and other creatures. So that's very, very important. So it's okay to gain life in this deck. That's kind of the sole purpose of the deck. Also, this card has escalation, so it's a much better than other copies of a card that might only gain like 3 life or so. So the card's really cool. We also have Inner Conflict. Target troop gets permanent. This troop can't attack or block. During our card preview, we talked about this card being very similar to Pacifism and Magic. The only difference is it's not an enchantment. It actually just permanently makes the creature not be able to attack or block. That means if they kill the creature, if the creature gets bounced back to their hand, it still will have the keyword or the text, it can't attack or block. So permanently for the rest of the game makes them not be able to attack or block. It's essentially a removal spell. Very, very good, and really kind of important in this type of deck. Radiant Armor. Target troop you control gets permanent +0/+1 for each diamond threshold you have. This will be pretty good on our Outrider. obviously, we can make him have retardedly high attack. So the card is neat. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's actually just a quick action. It's not like a constant. From my knowledge, there is no sort of like equipment or anything we've seen yet. So it is a quick action. So all right, it gives us a kind of a combat trick to play with, or a way for us to kind of still out that game. So swing for with our 4/4, and then all of a sudden turn them into a 6/6 or whatever. We also have 2 repels, which is a quick action 4-drop, destroy target attacking or blocking troop. Pretty straightforward, and a decent type of removal. It's going to be a way for us to deal with the bigger guys, like our freaking big spider thing up here, the Chosen. So it's pretty neat. Pretty good. Obviously, the only problem with it is that they actually have to attack. They have to attack, or they have to be blocking with the creature. But pretty good removal. Not the best we've seen, but not the worst. Moving on to our 5th deck is our artifact deck. I know that for Constructed, this is going to be one of the first decks that Tata kind of builds. He's been talking a lot about the artifact decks and how much he likes them. I actually don't think this deck is that great, and I'll explain it as we go on. But I like where the deck is trying to go, and I like what it's trying to do. I just don't think that it's going to be that good. I think it's actually going to get blown out really fast by the more faster decks that I predict most people will be playing. So we start off with the champion. The champion says 3 charges, create a worker bot, and put it into play. The worker bots are 1/1s, I believe. I don't know if there's a way that I can see. There we go. Yeah, they are 1/1s, but they are defensive, which means they can only defend. They can never attack, unless you have something that removes defender. But so making a 1/1 blocker is okay. I would dare say that the 3/1 haster and the 0/1 battle hopper are probably better. But 1/1 defender isn't too bad to get for free. Again, it's much better than our mono black deck's champion, so we can't talk too much about it. The first card we see in here is Aragus, Herald of Doom. We talked about this card. This card's really neat. It has the potential to just win you the game. If you get this out of play and you actually untap with it out, you're probably going to win. Its effects are super powerful. It basically has flight. It's a 0/5. At the start of your turn, or you reveal it from your hand. If you do, it gets -1 cost. So basically, for every turn you have it in your hand, it gets cheaper and cheaper to play. You can tap him to void target card, which is basically exile it. It just removes it from the game. Or you can tap him to deal 5 damage. I'm sure we have Dwarven Turbines in here. We do, which basically allows us to untap creatures. Ready another artifact. So you have the potential to basically double exile or 10 them or remove a blocker and 5 them. So it's there is some I don't want to try to say this deck is not synergistic, because it does. It's very synergistic, but I feel like it's going to be a little too slow with all the fast decks we've seen so far. Moving on, we have the Charge Bot 1/1. When this troop enters play, charge your champion. I love this card. It's one of my favorite cards in the game. We've talked so much about it, but I love him. I think he's really cool. 6-drop Heavy Welding Bot. When this troop enters play, you may put target artifact with cost 1 or less from your graveyard into play. We have some cool uses for this card. The main thing, though, to think about this card is this card's a 4/5. So he's a 4/5 for 6. That when he comes into play, you can take any 1-cost artifact and put it into play. Okay, that's a really strong effect. And he's a 6-cost 4/5. Now we move on to our mono black guy, our Chosen, right? This is 6-drop 5/4 that actually has a downside when he comes into play. So if you compare these two creatures, it's obviously very easy to see that our welder is much better. And I think with this type of deck, even with just our charge bot, it really gives us some kind of value. So we can replay a charge bot. There's some other 1-cost artifacts we'll talk a little bit about. Also, keep a note, whenever a worker bot dies, right? If we make a free worker bot, it still has a cost up here, because we can actually, from my knowledge, once it goes into the graveyard, it's actually still in the graveyard. So whenever he comes into play, I'm pretty sure we can get our worker bots back. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm almost 100% sure that that's how it works. Also, if our worker bot gets bounced back into our hand, for example, by something, we can pay 1 mana and play him back out, which is really neat. Moving on to our Research Librarian. Once per turn, it's also a basic action, which means you can only do it on your turn. You pay 7, draw a card, and you pay 1 less for that power for each artifact you control. This card is very powerful in the deck. I'm super excited for it. I think that this card will be a staple for the artifact type decks. It gives us it gives us kind of a mini engine that we can keep drawing cards and dig down to the cards we want at whatever given time. Moving on to the Research Adept. When this troop enters play, if you control an artifact, draw a card. So again, another way for us to kind of dig through our deck and get the cards we need. Actually, let me check real quick too. And he's actually a 2/3, so he's actually still pretty strong. It's going to be pretty hard to get him off the board. Technical Genius, you pay 1 less to play artifacts. Now this card's going to be very, very key. Because playing him at the right time is going to be pinnacle of how you play the deck. Playing him at the right time can make you get Argus out at very, very quickly, a lot quicker than what you could before. He basically reduces the cost of all your artifacts by 1. So that means any 1-cost artifact you have is free to play. So playing him down at the right time is going to be key to the deck, and I think it's going to be another reason why the deck is going to be really hard for newer players to kind of pick up and just display. But I think a skilled player could take this card and do some amazing things with it, let alone 2 copies or 3 copies of the card. Moving on to the actions, we have the 3-cost Oracle Song. Target champion draws 2 cards. Very simple. It is a basic action, so you can only do it on your turn, but this effect would be much stronger if you could do it on your opponent's turn if it was a instant cast instead of a basic action. We have the we go on to the artifacts. You have the construction plans, inspiration engine. So you can exhaust an artifact troop or a dwarf, and you add a construction counter to this artifact. And then if there are 10 or more construction counters on this artifact, exhaust it and transform into inspiration engine. Inspiration engine is right here. And inspiration engine says create a random artifact and put it into play. I don't like this card, and the reason I don't like this card is because you have to dump a lot of resource in it to get it active. And then once you do get it active, it's completely random. So like we could get the shittiest artifact, or we can get the most incredible artifact. With my luck, we're probably going to get the shittiest artifact, 99% of the time. And I really hate to dump so much resources into a card to maybe get screwed over by it. But that's me personally. I hate the word random. I think it has no purpose in any kind of competitive games. I think it's such a dumb thing to do. But I do think the card's going to be extremely fun, and I think that a lot of people are going to have a lot of fun with it. There's going to be somebody that plays it out, and the first time they create an Argus, you know what I mean, and they're going to flip out, and it's going to be so cool. But traditionally there's more shitty artifacts than there are good ones, so the odds are against you. Moving on, we have the Doppelgadget. 4 cost. At the start of your turn, you may transform this artifact into target non-shapeshifter artifact you control. So it's basically a phantasmal image for your artifact. You can play this guy out, and he'll turn into any artifact you have in play. He's going to be, obviously very, very powerful. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to close that so fast. You can play him, well, if you play out Argus, next turn you can play him out and have 2 Arguses now. Very, very strong. We can do a lot of cool things with it. We can even play him out and have 2 inspiration engines, so we have even more chances to get out ridiculously strong artifacts. So it's pretty cool. Also, about the inspiration engine, a free artifact is a free artifact. I don't want to act like this card's terrible. It's not my type of card. But I do think it's it's not horrible. Sapphire's Charge is not the only removal that the deck has, but some of the very limited removal that the deck has. So you pay 2, you sacrifice this, you deal 2 damage to target champion or troop. 95% of the time you're going to use this card as removal. Very rarely are you going to use it to actually win the game, like by actually pinging the champion. But it does have that versatility that I love, so the card's very cool and a staple for this type of deck. Secret Laboratory. Pay 1, tap it, draw a card, then choose a discard card. This is really cool because it gives us, again, another engine, another way for us to keep drawing cards so we can get those dwarves and stuff out when we need them. The cool thing about this, too, is that if we discard, a 1-cost artifact, then we can bring it back with our welding bot. So, it does open us up for a little bit of recursion. Also, we can dump out resources we don't want to play, for example. Volcanon is one of the biggest win cons the deck has. Basically, you exhaust an artifact or dwarf you control after you tap this, and you deal 3 damage to target champion. And then you can exhaust 2 artifacts or troops, and you can ready the artifact. So basically, you can tap it, ping him for 3, tap 2 artifacts or dwarves, and untap it, and then hit him for 3 again. This is basically going to be one of the big win cons for the deck. And if it could target troops or champions, it would make this deck probably one of the better ones in the format that we're going to see at Gen Con. But obviously using this in your Dwarven Turbines, and I'm pretty sure I skipped over, but we talked about, you know, them basically you can pay 1 to tap this to ready another artifact, so you can use, you know, Dwarven Turbines and your troops and your artifacts to really do a lot of damage each turn with the Volcannon. The last artifact we have here is the Worker Bot Factory. When an artifact troop or dwarf enters play under your control, add a assembly counter to this artifact. Remove 4 assembly counters from this artifact, create a worker bot, and put it into play. I'm pretty sure they actually tweaked this card. Maybe not, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought you used to have to pay mana to put a counter on the factory, and then you could tap to remove. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I felt like this card was a lot worse the first time we've seen it. It seems obviously a little bit better. Obviously, the deck wants to put out artifact troops and dwarves. That's the only thing that's in the deck. So you're going to get a lot of counters, and then once you remove them, you're going to be able to get free creatures. 4 assembly counters, in my opinion, is a little much. You know, playing out 4 creatures to get 1 free one is, you know, a little much, especially when the 1 creature you're making is a 1/1 defender. But, you know, we're going to be able to play out a lot of free creatures too with our, you know, hero power and stuff, so we might be getting more than I think. And obviously, you know, any creatures you can get out are good with Volcannon, so. But that's the artifact deck. I do think it's it's probably the neatest deck that they've showed, but I do think it's going to be one of the weakest decks. I think it has potential to. It's going to be one of the weakest decks that has the potential to do the most. Obviously, I think the mono black deck is the weakest, but I think that this deck is it could be worse than the mono black deck because of how much harder it's going to be to actually play it. But it's definitely one of the neatest decks. So moving on to the last deck of the decks that were spoiled. We have the Humans deck. I actually have the Inspire deck. I call it Humans deck because almost all the guys are humans. But actually, Inspire, real quick before I move on to this deck, Inspire is a mechanic that when you play a creature with Inspire, he inspires every creature that is his cost or more. So if you play a 1-drop that gives, you know, inspires +1/+1, then every creature you play that costs 1 or more will get +1/+1 for the rest of the game. I do think that this deck is actually going to be probably the best deck at the tournament, and I say that because we've seen them play this deck on stream, and one of the key cards at the during the stream that I'll show you guys wasn't working properly on the stream, and he still almost won. If that card was actually working, he would have completely obliterated the guy, and he got completely outplayed. Like the person that was played very poorly and still almost won with this deck. You get so much value out of your creatures that this deck, in my opinion, is going to be probably the best deck there. So starting out, we start out with Lady Elizabeth, and she says for 5 charges, create an Animathian Elite and put it into your hand. So an Animathian Elite is just a 3/3 for 4. So obviously this is better than deal 1 damage to your opposing champion and gain them life. The thing I don't like about this card though is that it doesn't have Inspire on it. It doesn't help your other creatures, which would probably be too OP. But what's really cool though is that it is a 4-cost creature for free that's 3/3, and because it is a free creature, whatever, it does take advantage of Inspire. So when you do play it out, if you have any 4-cost or lower creatures out, which obviously you're going to, she will take advantage of Inspire. So because of that, I think it's actually probably one of the best hero powers we've seen so far with the Gencon decks. It works very, very well with the deck, and she is already just a 3/3. That's before she takes advantage of any of the Inspire mechanics that we're going to see. Besides like the life gain mechanic we see from the life gain deck, I would say this is probably I would say this is just the best hero power that we've seen so far. Anyway, going on. Kraken Guard Mariner is Inspire as another troop with cost 2 or greater than this troop's cost enters play. Under your control, it gets permanent +0/+1. So this already makes our hero power a 3/4 if he's out. Very, very strong. No, we've already seen it before. I showed you guys with the life gain deck, but very, very strong creature. Here we go for 1 drop. It really has the potential to make all your creatures so strong. The cool thing I like about the, I'm gonna go back to, I'm sorry, the Mariner. The thing I like the most about the Mariner in this deck is that he is a 1-drop, and like traditionally your 1-drops, like you never like draw a 1-drop on like turn 7 and be like, yes, I got the 1/1. You know what I mean? Like, but it's because of Inspire, like you actually might draw him and be like, holy crap, all my guys have 1 more toughness. Great, like I actually needed this. So moving on to Legionnaire, he's a 5-drop. When this troop enters play, for each card that inspired it, it deals 1 damage to each opposing troop and champion. This card is amazing. And the troop only gets more powerful with the Blessing of the Falling that we'll see, that I'll show you guys in a bit. But this this creature it has the potential to just completely blow up. It's actually the only board wipe card we've seen in the Gencon decks. And because of that, it's going to be a good tool to actually just blow out like the Battle Hopper deck. And even the life gain deck has the potential to blow him out. So basically, if you play this creature out and he gets inspired by 5 other creatures, he actually deals 5 damage to all your opponent's creatures and the champion. So that's super powerful, and it's for 5. I mean, we've actually seen actual board wipes cost 1 more than that, and not be attached to a creature. So it's like a board wipe attached to a creature that hits the champion. Like, this card is very, very good, and one of my favorites from the Gen Con deck. So super excited to play with this guy. I think he's going to be really, really good, and he's going to blow out a lot of people. Moving on, we have Lord Alexander. He has Haste, Inspire, and he basically just inspires your other creatures to have Haste. That's obviously super, super important. You play him out turn 3, you play out a 4-drop, he gets Haste, you attack. You play out your Legionnaire, burn their board, burn them, has Haste, attacks. Like, it's just so strong. It's the amount of speed the deck, the amount of speed the deck gives. Super, super strong. I love it. I love this card. I cannot talk. I can't explain any more of how amazingly strong Haste is in the card games. Especially against like the mono black deck. You know, not being able to actually kill your guys until the turn before, until the next turn is really going to hurt them when they're getting hit by hasters every turn. Moving on, we have the clergyman here. He actually takes advantage of the haste, so you can play him with haste. As another troop with cost equal to or greater than this troop enters play under your control, it gains permanent +1/+1. So this is the Lord of the deck. This is the Bucktooth Commander of the deck. He's also a 3/2, so he's very strong. Very, very good. Basically, when you play him out, every card that costs 3 or more is going to get +1/+1. Very, very strong. That means Elite here is going to be a 4/4. Like, it's just so... The synergy of this deck is just unbelievable to me. I think it's so good. Got the Ruby Pyromancer. As another troop with cost equal to or greater than this troop enters play under your control, it gets permanent +1/+0. So she essentially does the same thing, but only affects their power. So actually with the Clergyman out, the Pyromancer out, and where's he at? The Kraken Guardmaster, you can actually effectively give all your guys, well, not, you know, every one of your guys, but most of your guys +2/+2. So, very good. Shield Trainer. Steadfast, as another troop with cost equal to you. Okay, I'm just going to skip this part because it's very, very annoying to say it over and over again. But basically, all your other troops get Inspire. All of your troops that you inspired get Steadfast, which is basically Vigilance. They can attack without tapping. Very good. Very strong. Sniper, 5-drop, 2 threshold. When this troop enters play, it deals damage to its deals damage equal to its power to target champion or troop. So it's like removal plus burn, you know, whatever, attached to a creature. If it's inspired by a lot of other creatures, it's going to get even more power. Also, something to keep with mind is if you play out the Legionnaire, you know, burn out their board, and then play this guy out next turn, you know, you're going to be able to you basically not double board wipe, but like you're going to be able to get a lot of board clear, a lot of board control off of just those 2 cards. It's only a 2/2, which is obviously its downside, but its effect is pretty powerful. Next, we have the Sword Trainer. So all the creatures it inspires gets permanent +X/+0, where X is the troops, where is this troop's power. So again, another, you know, Lord. I guess kind of a lord. I mean, it obviously buffs your creatures, so it is a lord, but not at the traditional sense where it's like +1/+1 or whatever. So obviously, if you have, if all your other guys if you have your other lords out that are pumping this guy, you're going to be able to give the rest of your guys, you know, a lot of power. It already gives all your troops at least +2, which is insane. I mean, it's so important. So all this is really cool. And, the Inspire mechanic is really, really neat. And whenever me and John were talking about this Inspire mechanic when the game was first released, my first thing I said about it was, the thing I hate about Inspire, I think it's very strong. The problem I have with it is that if they board wipe you, you suck now. Obviously if you go 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop, 5 drop, you have these insanely strong guys, right? But if they board wipe you or kill your guys, then you're just like, oh no, here we go. I have to start up again, 1 drop, 2 drop, whatever. It just seems very clunky to me. It seems good if you're already winning. And that's what I talk about a lot about card games. You're hearing me say this a lot, is that, if you're already winning, these super strong effects aren't that great. Obviously if I can curve out 1 to 5 drop without you killing any of my guys, of course my guys are going to be strong. So me and him were talking about that, and then we kind of agreed that, yeah, that kind of sucks. But then Cryptozoic made this card. It's Blessing the Fallen. It's a 3-drop to Diamond Threshold. Troops you control are inspired by troops with Inspire in your graveyard as though they were in play. This is absurd, and I'm actually surprised this card is even still here. I actually expected this card to be not made, because this card basically allows any of your troops to die to still inspire troops you play while they're in the graveyard, and that is super strong. We've seen none of these decks have any kind of constant removal. I have yet to see constant removal in the game. So basically, when you play this out, your guys are always inspired, by anybody. It's just I can't explain it the value of this card is unbelievable. It even still works with your Legionnaire. So you could play Legionnaire by himself, and as long as he's being inspired from guys from your graveyard, he's still going to clear the board. He's still deal tons of damage to the board and to your creature and to your the champion. The card is actually just absurd to me, and I think it's the best. It's why this deck is going to be the best deck at Gen Con, in my opinion. So I think it's so cool. There's only 2 in the deck, which whatever. I would run 4 just to make sure. I don't care. I'd have all 4 of them. I'd play all 4 of them. I don't care. The card's absurd. I mean, obviously the reason why they only included 2, just because we'll be serious here. The only reason they included 2 was because you don't want to draw more than 1. If you draw 2 of these, you're going to be a little upset. And you're really not going to need this early game. Because your guys are still going to be around. There's not really, there's not really no board wipes in the game until 6. And there's the only board wipe at Gen Con's a 5-drop creature that we have. So you're not going to need this card until later in the game. So that's why there's only 2 in the deck. Because you don't need to draw 1 really before then. We have Burn. We talked about this. They'll do damage to target champion or troop. Really good. Inner Conflict as well. So on top of all this extremely aggressive creatures we also have some pretty good removal. And then we have our Diamond and Ruby resources. So those are the decks that are going to be at Gen Con next week. I'm actually not sure when the Gen Con deck list, Gen Con deck list, I'm sorry, when the Gen Con LAN takes place. I'm not sure what day. I'm not sure if it lasts, all of Gen Con, if you can go there and play multiple times. I don't know too much about it. Though we will be there. I know me and John will be there. Dusty will be there. I don't know. I think, Sean will be there. So we're going to have at least 5 people from the HexTcgPro team at Gen Con. I'm going to talk to John, see if we can maybe go write up a little, this is what we did today, this is what we found out today, and post on the HexTcg site for you guys. So I really appreciate you guys checking this out. Let me see how many people are in here real quick. I'm sure this is not... Alright, so is it just you and... Okay. So if you're in here and you can hear me, just type in hi or something, so I can make sure that this I do the giveaway correctly. I don't want to only include 2 people if there's only 2 people watching. Okay. So do I have 0 viewers? Let me check the thing out here. I wish this thing would update better. I wish there was an easier way for me to tell how many viewers I had. Because my streaming tool says I have 0, but it always says I have 0. Okay. So if anyone's watching this, I should just type out here. It says I have 3 viewers. So, to be entered. Giveaway. Type hi. So I'll give you guys a little bit of time to do that while I finish up some of the other stuff we're going to do this week. So tomorrow I'll be doing my New Game Friday, which is a thing I'm going to do every Friday. I'm going to basically every Friday I'll be like, hey guys, like here's this new game that I found, or here's a new game that someone told me to play. Check it out. It's really fun. It's really neat. Next week or tomorrow will be Rogue Legacy. I've never played the game. I've only heard good things about it though. I know a lot of people are starting to play it. It's a very cool little game. It's a cool game that you can. It's actually pretty cheap. I think it's like maybe $15 or something on Steam. And actually, what I might start doing too is like every New Game Friday, I might actually give away that game on the following Thursday for like for people to check out. So anyway, okay. So I'm not getting any responses back for the giveaway. So what I'll do is I'll keep the copy of Soulforge because I'm not going to give it away to people who are not like actually in the channel. So what I'll do is I'm sure because this is just 3 people watching. I guess I'm watching myself. But anyway, I'm not going to give a copy of Soulforge away to people that just kind of has the stream open. So I will I'll keep the copy. We'll still give it away somehow. We'll do something. We'll give it away on the website or maybe do it through next Thursday or something. Maybe do it during Shaggy TV. Actually, we'll figure it out. We'll do something. But anyway, guys, that's it. That's it for the Gencon deck preview. Yeah. Okay. So, but anyway, guys, thank you so much for checking out the stream. I hope I didn't miss anything. I hope you guys learned something. Actually, to quickly break it down, I actually talked a little bit more about it during Shaggy TV, but to quickly break it down in case you guys want to watch this on a VOD or something, I missed it. If you guys have to play any deck at Gen Con, if you only get to play one, I suggest playing the Inspire deck. I think it's the strongest deck, and it's the one that's more valuable. Like it's still strong to removal, and it still has the aggro tempo to be able to actually just beat out other decks. I think the second best deck is probably the Life Gain deck because it has potential to get super strong very early. With just the Scrivener and the Paladin. It also has life gain, so you can maybe sustain yourself a little bit from the other aggro decks that will be played. And I think the third strongest deck is the Battle Hopper deck. So those are my top 3 decks from Gen Con. I would play one of those 3 decks if you had a chance to. Obviously, I don't know, like I said, if you're allowed to choose a deck each time or how it works. But obviously, I suggest if you have the ability to and they allow us to do it, play all 6, get an idea of what you like, check out all the cards. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the website, add them on the chat here. I will answer them about any of the decks. But alright, just like we do. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for checking out the HexTcgPro cast this week. Next week, we will not have a cast because we'll be at Gen Con. I'm going to bring my laptop and maybe like a webcam, so in case we have internet or have the ability to do a cast, we might do one. But I'm not going to say we're going to do one just because I don't know what we'll be at Gen Con, so we might not be able to get to a computer. We might be too busy, actually playing Hex to do one. But the following week after that, we will for sure have one. So keep an eye on us on HexTcgPro.com, and we'll have all the information there. So thanks a lot, guys, for watching. I really, really appreciate it. It means more than you guys will ever know. I will see you guys tomorrow at 3 o'clock for New Game Friday. So thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. See you later.